all cases, in fact, let's use a basic motto you should repeat to yourself 100 times over. In cases of natural disaster and man-made catastrophe, the majority is always wrong. Remember that, and that is the key. Wait just a minute. The reason I say this is because even as we are screaming, most assuredly, we are not the full majority as most people would like to interpret. But as I've said before, we are the vocal element of a majority that is out there. Now there's a few that are trying to sit on the fence, and as I said before, there are no deals. So they will learn the hard way, and they will get the pen. I'll give them the sharpened pen or the butter knife, and they can go out in front of me because I need more organic sandbags. Okay? You got your opportunity right now. You're all free citizens. You already get to make your decision right now. If they haven't made it plain, if they have not made it plain that they want your weapons, then I don't know how they can. And the weapons are the key, because it is still in the back of their mind. They know they put their pants on just like you and me. They button their blouses just like you and me. And because of that, there is still that niche of fear back here. Now, I will say one thing that I have not said yet tonight, but I will remind you of. Why have they gotten so far? Because they no longer fear the American voter. They no longer fear the American voter. In times past, for just a small portion of the crime that has been committed by these people, these men would neither be alive, nor would they be allowed to even stand on the same piece of soil that I stand on. We have been suffered and created in the image of the people we left behind in Europe, in Asia, and in every nation that our good citizenry left. Let's put it this way. I like what they said in Stripes. Oh, come on, y'all liked old Yeller. Why are y'all here? Because you were kicked out of all the respectable nations on the planet. Well, that's true. Only now some of us didn't get kicked out. We chose to leave. I have a personal belief in this, that it takes a very different soul to make the decision that with whatever creature comforts you have, you pick up, you leave to a question mark halfway around the world, and that you set yourself down and you make the effort to become a free citizen. That is a different psyche. That's a different, I think, gene makeup and everything. I believe it is a totally different kind of person that it takes. Imagine the strain we've put on all these other population groups, because every time that we've done this, from the nations that we've received great citizens, we have left behind the others, and they have lost that spark. Our enemy knows this too. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. One thing to remember: I'll take any 10 of the worst soldiers I could find in the United States and pit them against any company of foreign infantry, and I pity the fools when they show up. I really do. I don't care if they're European, I don't care if they're Asian, I don't care if they're from South America. Our enemy knows this now too. He thinks that what he's done is, you'll notice something, it's not that the enemy has raised up or elevated anybody else to any better standing. They haven't. What they believe they've done is they've cut the slats off from underneath us and dragged us down so low that we can't stand on our own feet. Well, I'm here to tell you that Daddy didn't raise no fool. And that's why I own this. And that's why I own that. And a lot more like them, and as many as I can. Because when the time comes, the spark is still alive in me. And I plan on making sure it's a blazing bonfire in my children. Don't you think it should be that way? Now, when do we fight? There will be no more Wacos. But there will be an attempt for another one. There will be a terrible action. I personally believe this. I believe that the next action, though, will make Waco appear as a pleasant dream. That it will be fast, that it will be devastating, and that they will cover it, but for a far different reason. Because the only hope that they have is terror. A lot of people say, oh, they won't try that again. Why won't they try that again? They'll get away with it. If you give me an inch, if you're with the Fed, you give them an inch, they're going to take 2 miles. They already, what's more apparent, and I know there are people debating Linda Thompson's tape even, they're trying to now, and I want to address that real quick. Ignore fighting amongst yourselves, focus on the enemy, ignore his attempts to divide us in any way, shape, or form, ignore any diversions, attack, attack, attack. George Patton had the right idea. Because when you start having these people throw these smoke screens up, you know we've hit pay dirt, and we're on the mark, and we're doing damage and hurting them now. And with this situation, with this next Parawaco incident, you will see, for instance, mechanized forces immediately on the scene. You will see air mobile operations given extensive coverage with a successful action, even if they have to fabricate it with other footage. They will not admit to their losses. Need I remind you of the activities in Desert Dust to psychologically brainwash us concerning the conditions and outcome of the war? And I've heard all these bright young people tell me, well, they'll never fool us again. It's going to be like Vietnam. Oh, they'd never lie to us. We'll know everything that's going on. A year and a half later, more and more comes out. We find out more and more about what I said during the war, and a lot of people laughed at, is coming to light. Logic dictates. You fly something into a bullet screen, you're going to collect bullets because planes are bullet magnets. That's simple. Anybody who's been in an aircraft knows this. So you fly low enough, somebody's going to find you and put holes in you. And contrary to all the propaganda, yeah, it was a great air war. We did a fine job, killed a lot of civilians, took down the population for Saddam, created a lot of building programs for him to help lift him up, and in the process didn't touch him. See? With our own activities, we are going to fight, we are going to be successful, but you are not going to get any credit for what you do. If you expect that thing to be in support of us in any way, shape, or form, it just isn't going to happen. The boob tube is controlled. So, that's right. The Federal Reserve controls that, and the people overseas, foreign powers. So when the actions take place, it will probably start, for instance, in a regional sense, in their respect. What will happen is, in the initial activity, an engagement will take place, possibly against a well-fortified position, not a small location. There are several targets. There's been speculations about Wyoming and other parts of the country. It is possible. When it takes place, at first, there will not be much information getting out of the area. But what will happen is like Lexington and Concord. People will see the smoke. This is all that will take from that point on. Remember, when they engaged at Lexington, only 18 to 22 men. There's a charter stating which men stood. Those men stood in the face of a wave of British military. Not an equal force standing across the battlefield. They stood up in face of overwhelming odds, knowing full well that if the enemy were to engage, he would sweep them from the battlefield. And he did. Lexington was our first loss of the war. Concord was next in line, and with the British having tasted blood, they went on. I will remind you again that the British commander went to the center of the town, had his soldiers pull a lounge chair out so that he could watch the activities, sat down in the square with his MJTF uniform on, with his Hessian uniform on, and watched his red-suited soldiers go house to house and burn systematically. When that happened, everybody saw the smoke from Concord. 10,000 minimum, 10,000 American soldiers, Minutemen, militiamen, men with the assault weapons of the day, stepped forward and turned the road back to Boston into a bloody red carpet. Now, that's what we need. If need be, some of us will, and many are prepared. We have our own example, for instance, our own situation here. If that were to take place in Wyoming, you would already see telegraphed actions taking place, and we're getting many reports from people all over the country this week. The biggest problem I have is trying to do work when I'm at work right now.